Dear Cousin Oscar, I hope this letter finds you well, or finds you at all for that matter. I have no idea where Uncles Duncan and Dan have dragged you off to. Tell them I said hi, by the way. I'm writing to you from an unusual place. I'll tell you where at the end, because if I tell you without context, you'll freak out. I'll start back at home. So, you remember my dad's old compass, right? The one that came with my book and that doesn't work? Well, 2 weeks ago I woke up to it rattling the drawer of my nightstand, scared the absolute shit out of me. Lit up and shaking like it's about to explode. I'm freaking out with no idea what to do, so I open my book to see if it's got any advice or instructions on this thing. I'm fumbling around in the dark so badly I drop the book right on top of the compass, which thankfully stops the shaking. When I pick the book back up, it's open to a bunch of my notes on Old Thassalon from when I got really into runes for a few years back, you remember that? I don't know if it's all connected, but when I opened the compass, it was pointing steadily northwest, towards Varesia. So of course I started packing. After a life spent on the grounds, I couldn't wait for a real adventure. And the first part of that adventure would be convincing the old grump to actually let me leave. You can imagine all his annoyed protests. It's too dangerous, and you'll be reckless, and you'll die. You know, usual grump stuff. But I managed to wear him down with facts and logic and only a little bit of furious begging. He finally relented, but insisted I take the scarf. You know, the magic disguise one? I agreed, mostly because the scarf itself was made by Varesians. Apparently it was Great Aunt Galena's, which I cannot see her wearing. That woman did not like bright clothing. Now, I didn't think I'd need it, until I arrived in Varesia and found the first sword pointed at my throat. Guess the people along the Lost Coast have been having a lot of goblin troubles recently and are a little on edge. What was that saying you told me once? Some people see green, they turn real mean? Yeah, I got reminded of that one real fast. After that, the scarf stayed on, bringing out Mom's gnomish side. People were still dismissive and rude at times, but they weren't trying to kill me. I consider that an upgrade. Anyway, I spent a while on the road following the compass. That's how I ended up in your old hometown, just in time for some big festival. The Swallowtail Festival, if I remember right? Did you know those butterflies are actually sacred to Desna? I thought it might be a sign, me arriving just when that was happening. Apparently the local church burned down about 5 years ago, and the festival was to celebrate the new one being built. This was well after the Uncle D's adopted you, right? Did you happen to know a Father Tobin and his daughter while you lived there? I guess they died in that fire, so, sorry if you liked them and you found out this way? Anyway, the festival was lovely, a nice mix of food and drink and fun. I took a swig from this hagfish tank that one of the local taverns had and nearly lost my entire stomach, but managed to hold it down just enough. They got me a round of cheers and a free drink of something much sweeter to wash it down. They were also holding this contest between all the taverns to see who made the best dish. Personally, I liked the venison the best, but most of the town seemed to prefer this curry dish from the Rusty Dragon. The woman running it was a Tian woman, and that made me vaguely curious about her history. I later found out her family were a bunch of pretty well-known glassworkers and had actually helped found the town, which just fueled that fire. I really wanted to ask her more about it later, but the way the day ended kinda made that difficult. Because of course, the day I'm in town, a bunch of other goblins decide to launch a raid on the festival, lighting fires and causing mass chaos. I won't lie to you, cousin, this kind of thing, it's so much worse in person. The old grump always talked about the unpleasant side of adventuring, the pain and the horror and the sounds that haunt your nightmares, and it's not like I didn't believe him, but I never really understood it. Not until I was running through smoke, coughing up a storm and trying not to die, clutching my scarf for dear life. Losing it now would have been a death sentence. No one here's gonna think twice about shooting another raiding goblin, no matter what she has to say on the subject. I wasn't trying to be a hero, just trying to stay alive and find a hiding spot. But when I rounded a corner, there was a man on the ground, his ankle twisted badly. He was shouting at children to run, to save themselves, while a goblin stalked towards him. He was holding a jagged knife and muttering about tasty longshanks. The man on the ground was just trembling so much, and I don't remember picking up the rock, or remember throwing it, but I do remember the thud it made when it hit the goblin's head. He'd barely had time to turn around before I was on him, my sword out and aimed at his chest. Just a regular short sword from the armory. The kind Uncle Alberon has drilled us both on hundreds of times. Maybe if I'd practiced more with that magic charm the old grump gave me, I could have used the special sword. Maybe that would have changed what happened, but I don't think so. I wish I could say my lunge was textbook perfect and that I ran the goblin straight through in a single strike, but I had misjudged things. I ended up having to stop short so I didn't accidentally skewer myself on the goblin's dog slicer. So all I managed was a weak smack that glanced off his leather armor, barely nicking his cheek as the blade went upwards. I always knew real combat wouldn't be like the training at the house, but I didn't realize just how different it would be. Uncle Alberon's teachings are the only things that kept me alive, and just barely. This goblin didn't have any kind of technique or style, but he didn't need it. He just kept swinging the sword and screaming. All I could do was retreat and block and try to remember anything about fighting that wasn't frantic fear for my life. I only survived by coming up with something incredibly stupid. I'm not exactly proud of this, but for some reason, as he was about to kill me, I remember Miss Madra. Remembered her lessons in the library, teasing me about being her little book goblin. Said I got it from Mom because Dad hated reading, wouldn't even try to learn. Steals the words from your head, he apparently used to say. So, on complete whim and instinct, I pulled out my book and shouted, "Take his words, page spirit!" And I swear, on Desna's stars, it worked. He flinched back like I'd actually done something to him, screaming about his soul and needing all 37 words that he knew. And I wish I could say I capitalized on my moment of genius to surge forward and slay him triumphantly. But the problem with stupid plans is you don't really always have a step two, so I just kinda stood there, blinking at him and trying to make myself do anything, really. Naturally, that's when the dwarf shot him, right through the head with a crossbow bolt. Damnedest thing. Of course, I was relieved and grateful for the rescue. I stumbled forward to both thank him and check on the injured man, when the dwarf started reloading, eyeing me with the same look he'd given the dead goblin. That's when I realized that sometime during all this skirmish, my scarf had fallen off. I looked back at the end of the crossbow bolt and tried to ask, in my least threatening voice, "Don't suppose you'll accept surrender?" I say tried because I croaked out, "Don't," at most, before my voice faltered, trembling with fear. I'd been saved by the man who was about to kill me. Isn't that ironic? But Desna be praised, my luck held out. The man I'd rescued came limping back around the corner, supported by some woman, probably his wife. He shouted at the dwarf to stop, told him what I'd done. That gave me the opening I needed to state my case and explain who I was. Honestly, even with all the evidence, the only thing that really saved me was the raid ending, I think. All the other goblins were gone, and it was just me left. Even if I was a lying, murderous jerk, the town had me surrounded and outmatched. They let me grab my scarf before quickly hauling me off to my current accommodations. Which brings me back to my unusual location. This letter is currently coming to you from the Sandpoint Garrison holding cells, where I am being kept for my own protection. The sheriff seems to believe my story for what it's worth, but considering the ugliness of the raid, most of the townsfolk probably won't feel the same way. It's annoying, but I can't really blame them. At the moment, I'm trying to think my way out of this, but I have no idea if I can. If you get this letter and happen to be in the neighborhood or know any family that is, maybe please come rescue me? Or at least check up. If I've gotten out, then we can get dinner. I'll probably be in town for a while. The Aeon Stone in the compass is glowing very faintly, which I think means I'm on the right track. Once I can investigate the town more, I hope to find just what it might be pointing me towards. I'll write again if I find out anything interesting. Look forward to hearing from you soon. Your cousin, Dina Fossright.